Tuesday edition of PFT Live. And Chris, I'm going to tell you a little story here about what happened on Sunday night. I was minding my own business, as I typically try to do, about 10:30 at night, maybe creeping up around 11. And I got an email out of the blue from someone that I can't even remember the name of the email address, and I don't know how secret any of it was, but the person was pointing out to me that there appeared to be a pending criminal prosecution of a member of the ownership group of the Houston Texans. And I was sent a screenshot that showed the list of charges: rape, 5 counts of first-degree sexual abuse, and 1 count of third-degree sexual abuse. And the indication on the screenshot was that there was some sort of a pretrial conference that was set, which implied that this thing already exists, like there wasn't an arrest that just happened, that these charges have been lingering. So my first thought whenever something like that comes along is it fabricated? Is it phony? Is it a trap? What's going on here? So I started to get to work on trying to figure out exactly what this is. Javier Loya is the name of the limited partners, been a member of the ownership group of the Texans since 2002, their first year in the NFL. So I started poking around Kentucky websites because this happened in Kentucky, supposedly, Louisville, Jefferson County. What can I find? What can I get to substantiate any of this? I contacted the Texans late Sunday night, went to bed, got up right at it before the show, got up 5:30 yesterday to get back at this. Texans texted me at 5:30 a.m. Eastern saying, PR, looking into it. We'll get back to you today. So I kept at it, called the courts, got a match on the birthday, February 2, 1969. And even then, I just in the event that there was this cosmically remote chance that there are 2 people with the exact same name and the exact same birthday, just in case, I wanted to hear something from the team in the league. So I was more of a pain in the ass than usual, calling PR with the Texans, texting, emailing, everything. Hey, somebody, let me know what's going on here because it looks like this is the guy, and I don't understand this. The warrant was issued May 10th. There's a pretrial conference set for August 22, and nobody knew anything about this. So eventually I got a statement from the Texans. We're aware of the serious charges filed in the Commonwealth of Kentucky against Javier Loya, one of our outside limited partners. We have agreed with Mr. Loya that while these charges are pending, he will remove himself entirely from any team or league activities. So that was when I finally got the confirmation, roughly 12 hours after initiating the process, of something that, frankly, should have taken 5 minutes. Because the league's comment, Chris, was this: the club promptly notified the league of the serious pending charges against Mr. Loya after they were filed. Remember, warrant issued May 10. Mr. Loya has not been permitted to participate in any league or club activity during this process. He is no longer on any league committees. So they knew about this from the get-go. And I had a somewhat spirited debate yesterday with someone from the league about whether or not it's fair to say that they concealed these charges. But when you look at the dictionary definition of the term concealed, they did. They just sat back and waited for somebody to ask. They didn't tell anybody about it. Now, there's a separate question as to whether they should have, but they knew about this for 3 months. And finally, somebody starts asking, and it takes them 12 hours to confirm it. They should have been bracing for this. This whole thing was so weird to me. These are serious charges: rape, first-degree sexual abuse, third-degree sexual abuse, all against a member of ownership. And last week, you weren't on the show Friday when we had this conversation about whether or not there is a higher standard for owners than players. But the way this thing was handled by the league, I still have yet to see proof that there's a higher standard. Because this is something, if it was a player, we'd have known about it back in May. It would have been a big deal back in May, and there would have been serious action taken. This player would be on the commissioner exempt list, and everyone would have known it.
I don't disagree with you there, right? I mean, that's for sure. I mean, even like the lowest guy on the roster in an NFL football team, if this happened, this would be front page news. NFL player, accused of rape, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's where it is unfair. I'd like to think that the NFL would hold ownership and the people that are supposed to set the example for the rest of the organization and especially the players to a higher standard. I think that would be the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do in almost every major business institution in the world. I mean, that's what you do. Yeah, our leaders got to be held more accountable, right? But at the same time, am I surprised, Mike? I mean, no. I mean, yeah, the NFL sat back and they were just waiting for somebody to figure it out, find it out. It's amazing it took this long. I'm actually shocked by that. But yeah, they're not ones to raise their hand and go, hey, we got a bad PR story. We'd like to throw that out there for everybody. So, you can, get on us and tell us how bad we are. So that's where I didn't expect them to do that. I am surprised it took this long, for somebody to figure this out. That's kind of shocking.
And I think what happened was the charges are in Kentucky, and none of the people who cover the criminal courts in Jefferson County recognized the name and started connecting dots. Oh, wait, Enrique Javier Loya is the same guy who's the CEO of OTC Global Holdings, an energy company in Houston, and he's one of the owners of the Houston Texans. Holy crap, this is something that deserves, some real media focus and treatment. So the fact that it happened in Kentucky, I think, made it something that was conducive to staying under wraps. But they knew it was going to come out at some point. You're not going to hide this forever. At some point, it's going to come out. And what makes me wonder whether they really did know, Chris, is the fact that it took them so long to confirm it. And I eventually got to the point where I said to the Texans, look, it's either him or it's not. You're either going to confirm it or it's not. This takes 5 seconds, especially if you knew about it. If you knew about it, you've been bracing for it. You've been waiting for it. Why don't you have your statement ready to go? The whole thing yesterday made me think they didn't know and they're acting like they did, because the only thing that makes this worse for them is if they truly didn't know, along with the rest of them.
I hear you.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I wonder whether the lesser of two evils is to say, well, we knew all along, we just chose not to tell anybody.
Don't seem incompetent.
Versus,
right.
Shit, we didn't know either.
Yeah. I mean, the way you're laying out the story and the fact that, for this type of subject, you would have thought, hey, we know, this is going to come out at some point. So when it does come out, let's have our game plan. That is a little surprising. There's no question about that. When you were first telling me the story, I was going, well, maybe they're just, checking with the league, doing this. They want to make sure they're on the same page with a statement or whatever else. But for it to drag on that long, I think it's fair for us to question whether they actually knew. Yeah, it is. And Mike, what do we know they don't have to tell us. We don't. We'd like to have that, as far as something from leadership. When do they think this whole event occurred that he's, allegedly being accused here for this, crime?
We haven't seen dates of the incident. We haven't seen how many alleged victims there are in this case. All I know is the arrest warrant was issued on May 10. And look, it doesn't take a genius to look at the calendar and to say maybe something happened over Kentucky Derby weekend that culminated in someone filing a criminal complaint on May the 10th, because the Derby was on May the 6th, just a few days earlier. So I don't know that that's irresponsible to point out the obvious connection on the calendar between the Kentucky Derby and all those people flying into Kentucky for the weekend.
Where my mind went, right.
Plenty, and I've heard that from people in the league. And that's like, I didn't write about it because, number one, it's kind of obvious. When as soon as you hear May 10 in Kentucky, you're thinking it's pretty close to the Kentucky Derby. I wonder if something went on that weekend. But we just don't know at this point. And I don't know when we'll get more details. Some of the other details that have come out, there were civil allegations of sexual misconduct against Javier Loya filed earlier this year, arising from a January 13 private party at a restaurant. The report from KPRC in Houston is the case was dismissed with prejudice in April. Well, that means quite possibly the case was settled, because that's what happens after a settlement. The case is just suddenly dismissed with prejudice. And there may not even be a mention in the final order as to why the case is being dismissed with prejudice. Rarely does anyone voluntarily just dismiss a case with prejudice. If you dismiss a case, you dismiss it without prejudice, so you could file it later if you choose to do so. With prejudice means it's over, it's done, it's never coming back. So that was April 20. Just a couple of weeks before this other incident, where that case may have been settled, but we know it was dismissed. And back to the other point, and this bolsters the possibility that maybe they really didn't know about it, because the first message I got from Texans PR, and I guess surely PR would know about it. Wouldn't PR of a football organization know if one of the owners was facing criminal charges? I'd like to think the PR staff would know about it, because they'd be bracing for it. What I got was, let me look into this and get back to you today. It's like, Well, again, you either know about it or you don't. And I don't know if the organization knew about it. Maybe the PR staff didn't. Maybe that was part of the effort yesterday.
Right.
The PR staff trying to pry the truth out of somebody else in the organization.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked there. This is one where you classify under that's the like you were going back to the original point with players, whatever, musicians, stars. That way, you get in trouble, you get a DUI. It's everywhere. You can't escape it. But, Johnny CEO or Johnny Wall Street and all that, they get a DUI. And, as long as somebody calls in to go, hey, that's the guy that, runs JP Morgan or whatever else, they get away with it. I mean, it doesn't come out. What'd you say? Sorry about that.
I said nobody's going to know.
Yeah,
nobody's
exactly.
Know.
Exactly. And this is why be a guy who
not
kind of flew under that radar there a little bit. Like you said, not major owner, right? Don't even know, wasn't aware of the name at all in any context connected with the Texans, at least me not personally. And it seems like maybe he got lucky there for a little while. And with what you're telling me, yeah, nobody in the league did find out. It is peculiar that those were the answers you got and that it was drug out that long before they finally got back to you.
The NFL statement, again, makes it clear that the league's position is they knew about it and they acted on it. And that's the next point that I want to delve into. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
And let's assume that they're telling the truth, that they knew about it. Again, the league's statement, the club promptly notified the league of the serious pending charges after they were filed. Mr. Loya has not been permitted to participate in any league or club activity during this process. He is no longer on any league committees. He used to be on the diversity committee and possibly others. So, and this is where I think the NFL needs to ask itself the philosophical question of when it has a duty, not legal duty, but just right versus wrong duty of disclosing something like this to the public. The moment you take action against someone would seem to be the moment that you need to explain the action you've taken and why. They were able to quietly remove Javier Loya from the diversity committee, along with any other committee he may have been serving on. They were able to quietly prevent him from participating in league or club activity because nobody else is paying attention. Most people didn't even know who he was. But I think the moment you take action against an owner, that's when you should announce it the same way you would announce it as they did last week with suspensions of Alvin Kamara, Chris Lamons, D. Eskridge, and others. The moment you take action against an owner, if you're truly holding them to a higher standard, and that's what they claim, higher standard. If you're truly holding them to a higher standard, the moment you take action is the moment that you tell the world that action was taken against an owner. Removal from committee, banned from participating in club or league activity. You're taking some affirmative action, some step against this person to limit their privilege of being involved in the NFL. That's when I think the procedure should be. For the same reasons we're going to tell the world about it if it's a player, if we're holding the owners to a higher standard, we're telling the world about it then too. Even if it's a member of a limited partnership group that nobody knows about, he's an owner in the NFL, and if he's held to a higher standard, then we're at least, if we take action against him, we're gonna issue a press release telling the world that this has happened. If you're truly committed to doing the right thing and treating the owners the same, just the same. See, that's the thing. They talk about higher standard. How about the same standard? Like, we don't even get to higher standard when they don't treat the owners the same as they treat the players. And this is an example, Chris, of how it's a different standard. It's a double standard, and it's a lesser standard for owners.
Well, I agree with that. And, yeah, in the perfect world to the next player, the players would like, there to be filed paperwork on things like this, just like there is for the players. You get suspended, it's, on the league activities for the day. Right? I mean, that's what you see. There's a press release and there's, all the things that went on throughout the league, whether it was a guy got cut, a guy got signed, a guy got suspended, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Why wouldn't the owners be under that same umbrella? I don't understand that. And it goes back into a little bit of a thing you brought up last week when I saw one of your articles and we were in Canton about, the provision that was moved a little bit about the higher standard and the owners being held to the same, accountability as the players. We know that's not true. That's not. And this is just another example of the NFL showing us that.
And, Miles Simmons and I talked about this on Friday, but it's worth mentioning since we're back in that same general neighborhood. When we compared line by line, word for word, the changes to the personal conduct policy from the 2021 version, because it was big news a couple of weeks ago. They changed the personal conduct policy, and there were just a couple of provisions that were reported in the New York Times showing that they reacted to the difficulty getting the punishment they wanted for Deshaun Watson, so they changed the language of the policy to make it easier the next time something like this happens. If there's a next time, they can get the punishment they want. But they did other stuff. And one of the things they did, they removed from the player version of the personal conduct policy the statement that owners and other club and league management will be held to a higher standard. It's just gone. And my thought was they want to take away the defense that Deshaun Watson tried. He tried to point to Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, Patriots owner Robert Kraft, Commanders owner Dan Snyder as examples of individuals who were not held to a higher standard than players, as part of the argument that Deshaun Watson shouldn't be thrown out of the league for a year and a half. It's a legal argument, and it's based on equal treatment, not based on whether or not he didn't do it. It's, well, wait a minute, you're going to kick me out for 20 games or longer when these guys never got punished, and here's what they did. I feel like they took that out to try to take away that argument. Now, got into a discussion with the league on Thursday because that sentence still appears in the personal conduct policy that applies to non-players. But why do you take it out of the player personal conduct policy unless you're trying to take that defense off the table? And that's where we kind of got to the point where it's the dog chasing the tail, because I said, hey, are you telling me that you're not going to make the argument if players say, what about these owners that don't get punished? Are you saying that you're not going to argue, sorry, that's no longer a defense? Well, they can raise any defense they want. My question is, if they raise that defense, are you going to say that defense is no longer available because the language has been removed from the policy? That's where the conversation ended, and I never got a response.
Yeah, well, that's a good job by you. Fair question, certainly. But yeah, I mean, listen, we don't need language, whatever. The proof is in the pudding. We see that the owners are not, held to the same accountability as the players. It's a shame. You wish it was a different way. I'm not shocked by these events that they didn't volunteer this information, And to your point, I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the NFL and some of the parties involved didn't know that, Javier Loya did some of this stuff. He was able to keep it quiet.
Allegedly.
It's
all allegations.
Right.
He
all
denies
allegations.
it. He denies it. His lawyer denies it strongly.
Right. Keep me straight.
He's entitled
Don't get me
to
thrown
all
in jail.
constitutional protections, presumption of innocence. Well, I'm not worried about you getting thrown in jail. I'm worried about money coming out of my pocket. I don't care about you going into a jail.
Some other
I
stuff,
care about money coming out of my pocket.
I don't worry about your pocket.
We can still do the show. We can still do the show while you're in jail. In fact, it might make it even more compelling depending upon who your cellmate is.
Right.
So I had another really good point here, and I can't remember what it was. I mean, look, this is the other side of the thing, too. To the extent they did know. I mean, this is a prime opportunity for them to create the impression that they do hold owners to the same standard, because it's not like it's one of the real owners.
That's true.
Right?
No doubt. Yeah.
Nobody knows who this guy is. We don't care about this guy.
Right.
Let's just like they do with players.
Yeah.
You make excuses for the stars. You make examples out of the scrubs. As the owners go, this guy's one of the scrubs.
Right.
This is our chance to just say, yes, we hold. But see, the problem is if they set a precedent where when it is one of the owners that, everybody knows,
right,
one of the powerful and influential owners, we're crossing a bridge here. We're not so sure we want to cross because we could be dragged across that bridge next.
Oh, I mean, again, conspiracy Chris would think that language that was taken out of the NFL, PA, CBA bargaining agreement and talking about, the owners being held to an account, that just smells of one of those owners that you mentioned calling and saying, we need to take that out of that agreement there so they can't use that defense.
Yeah, why do I have to read my name?
Right.
Why am I showing up on Google tied to Deshaun Watson?
Right.
I don't want that anymore. Do
Right.
what you have to do. When you look at all the changes, Chris, to the personal conduct policy that have been made. And look, I practiced law for 19 years. I'm not saying that because sometimes people are like, well, how the hell do you know any of this? I lived in this world. I know what it's like to deal with managers, owners, people who want things their way, and the lawyers just get in the way of what they want. I guarantee you, well, I'm not going to say I guarantee it. My theory would be that after they didn't get what they wanted in Deshaun Watson, somebody at 345 Park Avenue, somebody whose autograph might appear on every single football, lost his mind that they didn't get what they wanted to do. Why didn't we get what we wanted to do? Why is this person not suspended indefinitely for a full year or more based upon these allegations and what he's done? Why did this happen? Well, the policy, we had, some problems with the language and the policy. Well, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to rewrite you're going to look at that policy line for line, word for word, and anything in there that could keep me from doing whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it for any player, even if it's something they did when they were in college. I want the flexibility. I want that thing to be rewritten so I can impose my will on whoever I want, whenever I want, for however long I want. Something like that was said to the people who went back and redrafted the personal conduct policy, because when you look at all the changes, including the new change that lets them discipline guys for things they did when they weren't even in the NFL, that was a stunning new change. It tells me someone read someone the Riot Act about, I'm not going through this again, where a judge tells us, sorry, the policy that you had the ability to unilaterally write wasn't written in a way that lets you do what it is you're trying to do.
I don't doubt it, Mike. I think your pasta and meatballs, they're working overtime. I think you're onto something there. I think you are, and yeah, I think there's probably some truth to what you said there.
All right, let's go ahead and take a break. When we return, finally, Teddy Bridgewater, after an extended wait as a free agent, he has a new team. We'll tell you who it is, and we'll try to understand what it means for that new team. When PFT Live continues right after this. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.